Chapter 2. Owen was exhausted after a restless night's sleep as his stomach acted up and his mother constantly came in to check on him and remedy any accidents that might have occurred. He gave her no grief as she did whatever she had to under his nightgown at various times during the night, as he'd been woken but fallen right back to sleep a couple of times. When finally Sabrina shook him awake in the morning and he could barely keep his eyes open until she poured a little cold water on his face. "Seriously. Wake up," said Sabrina, getting a bit more forceful. "Go pee and you have to get on the web conference in 5 minutes. I've logged you on and done all I can while you slept like a log. Now come on, all you have is a half day, then we can relax and play." "Fine," grumbled Owen, sliding out of her bed and across the room into the bathroom. "Sabrina." Yeah. "Don't panic," said Sabrina through the door. "Just pee and hurry up, little sis." "What the heck is wrong with you?" said Owen through the door. "You dressed me in your clothes. I can't go on a web conference like this, and you painted my toes." "Well, you can't go on there naked, and you can take the cotton out by now if it's annoying you," joked Sabrina. "You're annoying me," said Owen sarcastically. "You're not funny, and don't you have better things to do like sleep? Just hurry up and pee if I were you if you want my help, because we're wasting time," said Sabrina through the door. "Oh, and girls pee sitting down, so sit. I'll count to 3 and then I'm coming in." She could hear the scrambling through the door and the toilet seat drop as she giggled, counting aloud and then pushed open the door. "What are you doing?" Owen shouted, covering his private parts with his left hand as he sat and shaking the long hair off his shoulders, getting angry. "I need clothes, and what did you do to my hair? Get it out." "Yeah, don't think so, and don't freak," said Sabrina as she came in spinning some panties around her finger. "You should be happy I put you in that skirt and brought you clean panties after you shit my bed. That was disgusting, and we were tending to you half the night." "I don't remember any of that," yelled Owen while on the bowl. "You're lying?" "Am I?" said Sabrina, opening the hamper. "Smell that? That's the second nightgown and second set of my sheets. I didn't have a third nightgown that would fit you, which is why you're in that outfit, but be happy I had 3 sets of sheets or you'd be sleeping in your own crap. You. That stinks bad." Owen turned away his face. "Damn right it does, and once the first set of sheets and nightgown are out of the laundry, I'll be putting those in while Mom's at work," said Sabrina, leaning down, picking up the diaper, feeling it and then tossing it in the little trash bucket. "And this is the second one in a row that's dry now, so you should be fine in just panties from now on. We can play your games later, so just go get my clothes," grumbled Owen, still covering up as he sat. "I'm sure they're in Mom's room on her ironing board already ironed and ready for me." "Normally, yeah," grinned Sabrina, tossing the panties off his chest. "But think again, Emma." "Please save the Emma stuff, and tell me you're joking," replied Owen, getting antsy. "Yeah? But no. Did you wake up thinking I have boys' clothes in my room?" said Sabrina, rolling her eyes and turning away. "Now come on, our options are limited at the moment and I'll turn around. Get your panties on and pull up your skirt." "Not funny," panicked Owen. "Please do not even kid, Daddy didn't open my door yet. Daddy came home and was lucky to sleep 4 or 5 hours before he had to go back to work," said Sabrina. "He looked like he could barely see straight when I saw him in the middle of the night, and I don't know if Mom even remembered to mention it to him while she was busy wiping your little red butt every other second." "Oh God," groaned Owen. "This is all your fault. Now what do I do?" "You pull your panties and skirt up, little sis, and be happy you won't have to be a baby girl today," said Sabrina, opening the door and beginning to walk out. "You've got 3 minutes, and I have a plan, so move your ass." "This is so messed up," groaned Owen, holding out the panties, seeing a series of princesses across the crotch. He got up from the bowl and stepped into the white cotton panties with pink trim and then pulled up the stretchy skirt from around his ankles. He was ready to kill his sister as he turned looking at himself while he washed his hands with his face beet red. He was in a basic girl's cotton t-shirt which was white and had a Barbie logo across his chest in peach pink glittery letters. Beneath it, a soft cotton peach skirt completed the set as he wanted to scream, drying his hands staring at his nails still pale pink. If that wasn't bad enough, he reached up, feeling one of his pigtails as instead of the short coil his mother had put him to bed in, they now hung in long lengths down to his rib cage, framing his chest. He gasped, feeling the tug of his own hair as he gave a small yank, as somehow they'd weaved his own hair with the obvious extensions forming the long French braids. The twisted ribbon previously at each pigtail stub had been replaced with larger peach and white multi-layered fabric bows with a Barbie logo, as their center and peach fuzzy scrunchies had been used at the ends to secure each braid. He hurried from the bathroom, wanting to scream but expecting her to quickly get him out of all this, and then stopped dead in his tracks, seeing just a baseball cap in her hands. "Hurry up. Your conference starts in less than a minute and most kids are already logged on," said his sister, pulling open the back Velcro on the hat. "That's your solution," gulped Owen. "A baseball cap." "Yup, it's Dad's cap, so it's big and I can easily get your braids inside it," said his sister. "Now sit so we can get all the angles right so all anyone will see is a kid in a white t-shirt and cap." "Oh," sighed Owen, looking down at himself. "I guess that's not so bad then?" "You sure?" "If you hurry up and sit so I can test it, then yeah," replied Sabrina, rolling her eyes. "All you have to remember is not to stand or move the camera." "Okay," said Owen, sitting down as his sister was tucking the braids inside the hat. "I can do that." "Exactly, and if you have to raise your hand." "It's palm out," said Sabrina, pulling it closed and then demonstrating. "Although with how nice your nails came out. I'd be proud of them if I were you." "Just test the camera," grumbled Owen, quickly folding his hands on his lap and rolling his eyes. After his sister tested it and gave the thumbs up, his class began and he sat like any other day on his Zoom session attending school. In a way he was never more focused, gingerly turning and raising his hand only when he absolutely had to, and sat without ever slouching, never having better posture. A few hours of class without any wavering concentration was like holding his eyes open without being able to blink for hours, until his sister finished her class first and came over, staring down on him from behind the screen. "Shoo," whispered his sister, holding her finger over her mouth. "You got 40 minutes left, and I'm done." "I can't wait," grumbled Owen, making a face. "Me either, little sister," whispered Sabrina, wiggling a small box behind the screen and then reaching around it, pulling his left hand from his lap. "Which is why while you finish up, I'll be getting started." "Enough with this crap," grumbled Owen, pulling away his hand. "Everett," yelled a voice. "Did I just hear what I thought you may have said?" "Oh, Mrs. Jones," panicked Owen. "I didn't say anything?" "You know I record these, and I can easily play it back later if you're denying what I heard," scolded his teacher. "Now did you or did you not just moan you'd had enough of this crap?" "I'm working very hard to teach you as much as I can under these conditions, and that's quite offensive." "I was just talking to myself that I can't hold my you-know-what much longer," gulped Owen, backpedaling. "I've had a belly ache this morning and had enough of feeling like that. That's all I meant by it." "Then get up and go," said his teacher, tapping her chin. "We'll just all wait and I'll add that time onto the session. Now hurry up." "Get up?" Owen panicked, trying to figure out how to move without showing off his outfit with every kid looking at his Zoom window. "Well, maybe." "Bad idea," whispered his sister, glancing down at his outfit with her eyes. You know I'll hold it, and I'm sorry," said Owen. "I won't interrupt again, Mrs. Jones." Then let's get on with things, and I'll expect not a peep from you again, said his teacher. Ditto, smiled his sister, reaching over again and pulling his left hand from his lap. He wanted to reach out and smash her as she manipulated his wrist, and then he felt the tinkling as he looked down, seeing the charms dangling from the bracelet she attached. A ring would soon follow, and then the pungent smell of nail polish remover would be quite the surprise. He tried to focus on the schoolwork, wondering why with class ending before long she'd be taking it off him since they'd be playing again soon as she finished, and then she let go of his hand. He glanced down, watching the charms flip, relieved to see no polish around as he casually extended his other hand before she even asked. The powerful stink would smell like chocolate as he relished the removal, and then when she let go of his hand, he almost raised it accidentally to the camera's level before he noticed 2 bracelets on this arm now. Back to his left hand she grasped as his eyes widened, seeing her squirt a drop of glue on his pinky nail, and then felt the pressure as she squeezed on the press-on. Pale pink had now turned to a brighter pink and extended in a round shape past his fingertip. He looked back up at the screen, trying not to let his teacher see him lose focus, but it would be tough as he felt the next one press on. When finally she let go of his left hand, he stared down while she took the other, knowing even with his palm forward they'd be impossible to hide if he had to raise his hand. He swallowed hard, doing his best not to give his teacher any reason to call on him or think he looked distracted, but that would be impossible as he kept glancing down, almost more distracted by the sparkle of the glitter-embossed finish. He tucked his nails into a fist, covering his thumb as he felt a few beads of sweat slid from his cap, wiping them away with his wrist in a flash, wanting to die as the jingle from the bracelet sounded as large as a church bell to his ears. He glanced at every little student's window as seemingly no one else noticed as his sister was covering his mouth giggling as she held up a little package of dangling earrings, holding the packaging next to her ear and then pointing his way. "These will be so cute on you," whispered Sabrina, teasing him. "Oh, how I wish I could have your ears pierced." He could feel himself growing angry as he tried not to listen, but it would be tough as she was cracking herself up. She then opened a little tube of lip gloss, playing with the applicator and holding up an eyeshadow kit, directing it towards him almost like she was measuring him up. She tapped her watch and then wiggled her finger back and forth, warning him he'd be hers soon as he tried to ignore her, but she was relentless, ready to start. She squished her cheeks, thinking before holding up a finger, and then reached down, opening a shoebox, showing him some white sandals, holding them against her chest and telling him how much she loved them. She could see him doing his best to still ignore her, yet getting agitated as she raised her brows and then held them just at screen level while she pointed down to his feet. When he gave her a look, she ducked down, crawling around, taking his leg as it was inevitable that on his feet they went. "You," said Sabrina as her head popped up, pulling off the shoe as out of the room she went as he just tried not to lose focus, paying her no mind, and then his teacher called on him, causing his heart to skip a beat. "You still okay there, Everett?" said his teacher. "We've got 20 more minutes to go, so are you concentrating on school or holding it in?" "School, Mrs. Jones," said Owen as the kids got a little laugh as his sister returned, crawling across the floor. "Okay then, you're up," said his teacher as Owen felt his ankle being grabbed. "And I want your entire focus. Please recite back the homework assignment I gave you for the weekend." "Homework assignment?" gulped Owen, as suddenly a dull buzzing began and he felt something touching his leg. "Yes." "Word for word please?" asked his teacher as Owen was dying to look down, but couldn't, feeling the coldness rotating near his ankle. "And maybe you should take off that stupid hat so I can look into your eyes and see if you are paying attention." "So were you, and what is that sound?" "I was." "I promise, and I don't know," gulped Owen, as his eyes widened, feeling the soft buzzing move up his calf. "Maybe I was just paying too close attention to the lesson, and not the assignment, because I didn't hear about homework. Please don't make me take it off. I woke up late and didn't brush my hair today." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Jones." Well, then you were paying attention, because I gave no assignment yet, smiled his teacher, as the buzzing grew louder, moving over his knees and inside his skirt. Eyes on the screen, please, and sit up straight. What is that? And that noise is getting awfully loud. Yes, Mrs. Jones, nodded Owen, straightening his back as the buzzing moved over to the other leg now. Don't know? Thank you, said his teacher, shaking her head. And it's hard enough doing these lessons when everyone's at home, but you would think whoever's mother that is making the racket could wait until school was over to begin vacuuming. On she went with the lesson until finally the buzzing stopped and he felt the sandals slide on his feet. If he could have kicked her without drawing any attention he would have, yet he could do nothing but keep his focus, afraid of the wrath of his teacher. Nice and clean now. All vacuumed up, whispered Sabrina after popping up behind the screen and giving 2 thumbs up, teasing him. Don't screw up the last 5 minutes, and I'll go fix us lunch. Meet you in the kitchen, little sis. As she scampered into the kitchen, he was almost afraid to look, as apprehensively he stretched out his left leg, seeing his foot in the white sandals. He wiggled his painted toes and stared at the little silver buckle around his ankle, feeling a shiver as he stared at his legs looking extremely smooth. He could barely focus on the last few minutes of school as he reached down, feeling his thigh before class finally ended, and he wanted to scream. He needed to take a breath as he turned off his iPad, needing a second before he could even stand up, and then her voice made him practically jump from his shoes. What's taking so long? Asked his sister from behind, pulling off the hat. Come on before your grilled cheese gets cold. The only thing cold is my legs, snarled Owen, spinning around annoyed, pulling the long braid off his face. Was that really necessary? Not really, because it was just peach fuzz, but still it looks so much better, said his sister, moving his hair back to each shoulder, then taking his hand. Now just come eat, sis, and try not to spin that fast again, or I won't be the only one with a black eye around here. I'm thinking a black eye would be an improvement, grumbled Owen as they entered the kitchen. Of course it wouldn't, and then you'd have to wear even more makeup than I planned on putting on you later, replied Sabrina, serving him his plate. But if that's what you want, sis? No, I do not, yelled Owen, sitting down. But you called me sis again? So I'm done being the baby at least. Yes, that was yesterday, and I'm done being the mommy, said Sabrina, sitting down and eating with him. Not that I didn't love it, but today you get to be the little sister I always wanted. I can hardly wait. Wait, said Owen. You started before I even woke up. You haven't waited at all. I've waited years, giggled Sabrina, tapping her fingers on the table. Now just finish eating, because just watching you eat is killing me. You're that adorable in that Barbie outfit, little sis. Maybe I should eat slower then, joked Owen. Well, I wouldn't if I were you, because we'll only have an hour outside before public school ends, said Sabrina, looking at the time, biting into her sandwich. But if you don't care about those kids seeing you looking this cute, then whatever. Eat slower? I'm not going outside like this, replied Owen, half choking. Aw, yeah? You are, ordered his sister. We are playing hopscotch and jumping rope. I already lined the sidewalk and tied one side of the jump rope to the mailbox post. I've got plenty of inside activities later when the rain is coming, but Mom already said we don't have to stay cooped up all day if we're safe. I went out when it was your turn, and you'll be out for an hour now that's at mine. But we went out yesterday, said Owen, petrified. Barely, and with you in a carriage. That's not playing, and it's only an hour, said Sabrina, not wanting to hear it. And the hour starts once we're out there. I can't go out with ribbons on my head and in a dress, yelled Owen. Are you nuts? It's a skirt, not a dress, and I picked one made to play in, said his sister, rolling her eyes. Now of course you can, and white girls wear their hair tightly braided so they can play without it being a problem. We're going out for an hour, so the longer you dilly-dally the more a chance some kids will come by, although chances are slim, but I'm not rushing you. You know I'd be made fun of every day if anyone saw me, replied Owen. I'd never be able to show my face in school again. Only if insensitive bullies you shouldn't be friends with anyway saw you, and these will help, said his sister, unclipping an earring from the package and walking over clipping one on him. Girls would be cool with it and love that you play dress up with your sister. Plus I'm sure some boys would too that weren't brought up as haters, and you'll be in a mask anyway, so what's the big deal? A mask? Nodded Owen as his eyes got big as she clipped on the other. That's right. Yup, and just don't catch an earring when you put it on. Sabrina handed him a mask. Okay then, maybe that's not so bad, said Owen, taking the mask. Let's go before the public school lets out. With the mask as security, he quickly swallowed his last few bites of grilled cheese and pulled the elastic over his ears. He ran over to the hallway mirror and then looked at his sister as she nodded. His brown eyes would be peeking out above the surgical-style white mask, yet framing it would be dangling braided pigtails, sparkly bows, and little wavering drop Barbie logoed earrings. It was a nice spring day, yet his legs were shaking as he walked from the house looking like a cute little girl. He could barely feel his feet touch the pavement as she led him down their front walkway, and then there he was at the sidewalk. Sabrina would go first, hopping through her design as she spouted off rules through her mask, and then he found himself following suit. He was playing hopscotch like any other little girl in a cute outfit, feeling his pigtails rebound off his face and his earrings jiggle with each hop, skip and jump. He continuously looked around, seeing only a few joggers and a couple of cars as no neighbors were in sight and most of the kids were still in school. Onto jumping rope they went after 20 minutes of hopping. His sister was teaching him rhymes and cheers as they took turns jumping and turning the rope. It would soon get more complex as she instructed him on various routines and would not let him stop until he learned each one. Hopping on one foot multiple times before flipping over to the next wouldn't be so hard, but then timing everything with the cheer and choreographed steps would be a whole new experience. They had some in-house dance parties with their mother where they had some fun in the living room, but never like this, as suddenly he was her personal project, teaching him step after step, not stopping until he got them right. They were out there a lot longer than they knew as time flew with not much else to do until finally some boys came by on their bikes and paused when they saw Sabrina. Hey Sabrina, yelled a boy, pulling up. I like that cheer, and are you allowed to finally hang out now? Stay at least 6 feet away, Timmy, and not really, said Sabrina as she stopped the rope for a moment. Why, are you? No, all I can do is ride my bike and wear this stupid mask, said Timmy while on his bike. I miss you so much and miss seeing you around outside lately. Me too, frowned Sabrina. I've been out a little, but I really haven't seen you around either. Well, I haven't been out much. My mom's been tough about it, replied Timmy before grinning. But I did see you trying to play catch with your brother. It was that bad? Sabrina asked him. You said it. I didn't, laughed Timmy. Very funny, smiled Sabrina. Did I look like that much of a girly girl playing catch? Maybe, and what's wrong with that? Said Timmy with a big grin on his face. Nothing, I hope, grinned Sabrina, batting her lashes. And with any luck he won't ask again, and I'll stick with jump rope. Why? I'm sure with a little practice you can do anything, said Timmy, looking into her eyes. But really I'm just happy to see you outside and talk to you. That's so sweet, said Sabrina, holding her heart. Thanks, and then if you can't come out much, how come you can babysit? Timmy asked. Who's the girl? Oh, it's just Emma, and her mom works, so I have to watch her, said Sabrina. She's like family, so we're always together anyway. Cool, said Timmy. And maybe when this breaks soon we can hang out? Maybe go for an ice cream sundae or something? Oh, said Sabrina, caught off guard. You mean? Well, like a date? Well, stuttered Timmy, getting shy. Only if you want, or else maybe. No, I'd like that, smiled Sabrina. I mean, I'd have to ask my mom, but that sounds nice. Awesome, sighed Timmy, feeling the air go out of his chest. And if you were stuck sitting, I could bring my cousin Frankie that lives a few blocks away. Guaranteed when he sees Emma, I'm sure he'd love to hang out with her. Really? Grinned Sabrina, trying to hold in her laughter. Yeah, replied Timmy, looking over at Owen. No doubt. Well, that part I'm not so sure about, as she's a little young for a boyfriend, but I'll get back to you on that, right Emma? Said Sabrina, winking at him. Mumbled Owen, dying inside. Yeah, sorry, and maybe that came out wrong, said Timmy, backpedaling. I just thought she looked pretty cute and all, so he could keep her company. She's very cute, and we'll see, said Sabrina, walking over and putting her arm around Owen, softly rubbing his back. But we'd better go in now, and I'll text you, okay? Great, nodded Timmy on cloud nine, pushing the pedal on his bike. See ya, Emma. See, no problem, and he never even thought you were a boy? Sabrina told him. How embarrassing, said Owen, now beet red. I think I'd rather be a baby again. No, you won't, and I told you that you looked adorable like this, so now you heard it for yourself, said Sabrina, touching his face. You ready to admit now you were worried about being out here for no reason? No reason? Yelled Owen. I'm a boy. As if? Laughed Sabrina, looking around. Oh crap, said Owen, covering his mouth, realizing what he did. Relax, no one heard that, but let's go in, pretty girl, before you pick up any more boys, said Sabrina, looking around again as she took his hand, walking back towards the house. That is, unless you're not happy with Frankie, and we can try and find an even cuter boy. Do not even joke about things like that, Owen said. And I'm telling Mom about that? You know you're not allowed to date yet. Like I care? Mom likes Timmy, and I think she'd allow it, snapped Sabrina as they went inside. But you know what, that's not how sisters are supposed to be, so tell, and you will be finding yourself on it with me. Then we'll explain that to Mom and Dad together. No thanks, gulped Owen. These lips are sealed. That's better, grinned Sabrina. And they're about to be in a pretty gloss. Let's go get you changed before tutoring. Tutoring? Gulped Owen as back into her room he was lead. Yeah, just the online math tutor Mom had me set up, said Sabrina, closing her door and turning on her laptop. It's only for 45 minutes the next 2 days, and then you should be able to pass the math quiz you got a 56 on. Oh, that sucks, groaned Owen, seeing her open her closet. But I thought Dad didn't open my room, so I didn't have any clothes again, and did you just say, oh no? Say that'd you'd be cute in some gloss, laughed Sabrina, tossing some clothes on the bed. Yeah, and let's get you ready for tutoring. You mean in that, and without the baseball cap? Asked Owen. Yup, they have to be able to see you right, and it's a bigger view, said Sabrina, undoing one of his braids. You'll be fine, and the tutor is not from around here. It's virtual, so he's like halfway across the country. You mean so he doesn't know me? Asked Owen as she was unraveling the other braid. He knows you failed math, said Sabrina, holding the stem of a pigtail and pulling out the bows. Well, that Emma failed. That's how I signed you up, and better her than Owen, right? Ouch. I guess. Owen winced as she pulled out the other bows. And does Mom know this too? Yup. She's cool with it, said Sabrina, pulling all the loose hanging hair at the ends, keeping them tight against his head and taking something yellow from a box. I convinced her since I'm giving up so much of my playtime that it would be easier, and she agreed. She can be very agreeable if you're sweet and kind. Girls are like that, you know, so hopefully you've learned something during your Emma time, little sister. I don't know what I learned, gulped Owen, seeing her with a big sunflower in her hand attached to a band as she slid it on and looped his hair through it a few times before she tightened it. Well, what you should learn is girls are focused, said his sister, tapping his elbows. Now put your hands up and get it together. If you concentrate with the tutor, then you'll have this behind you. Concentrate like this? Asked Owen as she pulled his top over his head. Do you know how hard it was to pay attention today like this? Was it? Step out, said his sister, reaching down and dropping his skirt. Seems when she asked you a question you were right on? She seemed pretty amazed, actually. You mean about the homework? Replied Owen as she tapped his elbows to raise his hands again, and then down came a big garment. I guess I was, but really I was more worried, so I had to concentrate all morning just not to move and have my outfit seen. And this time you won't have to worry about that then, so you can focus on the tutoring, said his sister, pulling his outfit down and then quickly zipping the back. And that was 4 hours. This isn't even one, so it should be easy, right? Easy, said Owen, looking down at the yellow dress. Yeah, easy. Now be still, said his sister, lifting his chin and taking a little applicator to his lips. You, sighed Owen, hating his lips being greased. Oh, stop, and rub them together, then look up, ordered his sister, inspecting, then beginning to coat his lashes with her wand. It's just a little makeup, so get used to it since you'll be wearing a lot more than this later. Fantastic, grumbled Owen sarcastically, as she was holding open his other eye and working on it. It does look fantastic on you. I agree, you little diva, teased Sabrina, pulling off his earrings. Now focus on what the tutor says, and you won't have to worry that no one sees anything but a pretty girl, Miss Emma Rose. Oh geez, gulped Owen, feeling something snap on. Let's hope so. You do? You hope so? Said Sabrina, getting excited. I love how you're coming around to this little sis, and believe me, that's what they'll see, just like Timmy did. Emma Rose Everett, and she's so freaking cute. Wait, what did you say? Said Owen, turning towards her. Isn't this just me and the tutor? Actually, it's for up to 4 kids, so I'm not sure how many signed up, said Sabrina, walking over to the laptop and signing him in. But just don't lose focus, especially if there are boys on there getting tutored too, so concentrate and don't flirt so you can pass this time. I'm going to be sick, said Owen, shaking his head annoyed. You're not, and you can't even try until you're around my age, said Sabrina, stepping away from the keyboard. Now come sit down. Emma Rose Everett is signed in, so please get here as it'll be starting any second now. He walked over, sitting down at her laptop in the Zoom session, and then quickly it began. Again there he was in the little session window, except this time there would be no boy hiding bows and braids under a baseball cap or positioning himself to hide his outfit. Instead now that would be quite impossible anyway, with his bare shoulders on display, as thin yellow straps led into the squared-out top of his mustard-colored sundress, and instead of a hat that hid his bows, his pigtails hung prominently on display in thick wavy masses beneath eye-catching yellow sunflowers. He reached up with his glittery acrylic nail, sliding some of the loose hair annoyingly stuck to the edge of his lip, and swallowed hard, awaiting the teacher nervously, fixated on the watermelon lip gloss that shined back at him. There would be 1 other girl and 2 boys once the teacher allowed everyone in, and he wanted to die having to introduce himself as Emma. Quickly it was all business though, as no one seemed to question his gender, and in no time he forgot himself. It would just be math exercises, little tricks to solve problems, and encouragement as it seemed to go quickly. When class was about to end, his sister reappeared in the room, giving a little wave yet never interrupting. When finally it was over, he actually felt better that something clicked regarding the work and then turned, seeing his sister as he closed her laptop. "So how did it go?" Sabrina asked. "Pretty good, I think," thought Owen, touching his face. "I think I really understand it now." "I'm amazed." "You shouldn't be, and don't bite your nails," replied his sister, pulling his finger away from his lips. "I'm thinking you just have had a bit of a focus issue that we just may have found the key to clearing up." "You mean dressing me like this you think helped?" said Owen as his eyes widened. "Yup," nodded Sabrina, twisting one of his braids playfully. "No time to daydream about whatever it is you daydream about. You had to stay focused on the math, and making sure everyone just thought you were the little cutie that you are. Nice job, little sis." "I hate to admit it, but that part you actually are right about," admitted Owen. "Except not the cutie thing?" "If you say so," giggled Sabrina, flipping the braid off his face. "Yeah, I do." Owen looked away, playing and holding out the long pigtails after it smacked him in the cheek. "I was kind of focused on just making sure no one thought I was anything but a girl, if that's what you meant." "Like that was ever even an issue?" smirked Sabrina, rolling her eyes and flipping around her phone. "And this is that kid Frankie. What do you think? So cute, right?" "Aw no," yelled Owen. "Gross, and not funny? I rode bikes with him last year." "Bike riding? Ice cream? Or even a movie?" teased Sabrina, flicking her wrist. "They'd all make a nice first date." "You done?" said Owen, steaming mad. "No chance," smiled Sabrina. "Now want me to test you again, or you finally ready to play?" "Neither, but please no more math," moaned Owen, twirling his hair, not wanting to make eye contact. "And seems like you've had me ready since the moment I woke up." "Even sooner," laughed Sabrina, pulling his hand off his pigtail. "And looks like you've been enjoying some playing too with your hair now?" "I wouldn't call any of this enjoying," said Owen, letting go and giving her a dirty look. "And how does this look and feel so damn real? Follow me, and first of all, little girls do not say damn, and mommy would be pissed if she heard you, so don't again," said Sabrina, taking him by the hand out of her room. "And second, it is real. Those are some of Mom's extensions, which are real hair that she uses all the time, and I doubt you've ever even noticed them." "I didn't," said Owen, lifting one again, bending his chin looking at them as they walked into their parents' bedroom. "Well, you both have the exact same hair, but I doubt I need to remind you of that, and she's got a drawer full of them," said Sabrina, opening a dresser drawer and grabbing a big clump of hair. "I wish I had the same hair as you too, so how lucky are you?" "Yeah, something tells me we've got different views on that, but I'm thinking I'm about to find out," said Owen, seeing all the costumes on the bed lined up. "Yes, you are a princess," laughed Sabrina, coming over and pulling out their mother's vanity seat. "Now sit and let's get started." What he expected to be coming now was realized as he sat while she attacked his face with some big brushes. In no time she began spreading some blush across his cheeks and then pushed his eyes closed, working on his shadow. He opened and closed them on command, not making a sound, barely wanting to know what she was doing to him, and then she began adding some powder. A little work with a few pencils after the dust cleared, and the big smile on her face told him more than he needed to know as a little brush began to run across his lips. When she put the brush down, she pulled out the sunflower scrunches, and then it was quite annoying as she unwound the pigtail extensions, yanking them from his hair. A thorough brushing of his hair while keeping it taut in her palm on the right side would be followed by few twists of what was left of the small pigtail without any extensions. Down away from each temple she worked, adding some bobby pins as she continued to twist before sliding in the last behind his right ear. On the left side now she'd again brush and then twist just like the other, until quickly both sides had been pinned down without much fuss. "You barely need any makeup to be cute," grinned Sabrina, partially covering his eyes and spraying each side. Now hold these. Oh geez, Owen replied, now having to clutch the big clump of hair she had pulled from the drawer. It's just hair, and hold this too, said his sister, handing him a big bow. You should almost be used to long hair and bows by now. But I'm not, grumbled Owen as she was pulling his hair near his nape into a little nub. And she wound a small band now, making it tight near his spine, and then she reached over taking the hair. He watched as she brushed through a long pony clip right in front of his face, and then it disappeared behind him while she attaching it to his hair. So you say, but I think you love it, said Sabrina, noticing how he watched as she brushed. And if you don't you should, as I love you with bows on, so hand it over, Emma. He sighed as she reached her hand over his shoulder and he handed over the blue bow. A distinct snap would let him know it had been attached, and then a small yank making sure all was secure would confirm it was on before she came back in front. It would be time for her to dress him now as she opened a package of white tights, leaning down and lifting his left foot. Over his painted toes went the left side and up past his ankle before she lifted the right foot as quickly she tapped him to stand once they were at each calf. As his feet hit the floor, she began rolling them up and then just that fast she snapped the waistband. At least they'd be over his princess panties and not some diaper as he looked down, seeing her drop some shoes from a box. Into some simple black flats she had him step and then she turned, taking a shirt from the bed. Out of the sea of girly-looking costumes she tossed on the bed, it seemed the most harmless as she unbuttoned what looked like a simple white cotton shirt. The softer blouse would be not much different than a boy's shirt as she slid his arms inside, and it didn't seem so bad as she buttoned it up. Of course there would be no pants, as a blue romper-style dress would soon be lifted over his head, and then as it dropped down it was quite contrary to anything blue and boyish as she zipped him inside. Was he to be her mate? He fretted as she fastened an apron over the dress, and then as he wondered what she was up to, she unfastened her robe and pulled a mask from a bag. Was it the prince costume he was in? Before he wondered for a second until he noticed her hairy feet and then looked up, seeing her take a mask from the bag. Oh, now I get it, grumbled Owen, looking at her as she pulled on the mask and then down at his outfit. But shouldn't I be the beast? You're much too pretty and delicate, joked his sister, pulling on the furry hands. Ha ha, grumbled Owen. And why do you even have that costume? I've never seen you in it. It was a set when Mom bought this stuff a few years ago, said Sabrina. I would have made you the beast a long time ago, but you were too small and now I've grown out of that dress. By too small, you mean too young? Owen asked. No, too small, replied Sabrina, shaking her head and then giggling. Really, based on me knowing your sizes and dressing you, I kind of think you probably still are, and now at least finally someone gets to wear it. Yeah, but we've been playing dress up together, but now. Gulped Owen. Well, now you're the boy and I'm the girl. I thought part of you doing all this was because I made you do so much boy stuff. Well, maybe a little, but that's before I knew you'd make this cute of a sister, laughed Sabrina. And don't worry, I'm planning on both of us being princesses next time. Next time? Moaned Owen. Please, I promise I won't make you do boy stuff ever again when it's my turn. Yeah, that I doubt, and don't cry, princess, said Sabrina, dragging him across the room. Come see how pretty you look. I'm not, said Owen, annoyed as she pulled him along, and then he saw himself. Oh God, maybe I should though. Like you thought you wouldn't pretty like Belle, and you haven't looked pretty all day, said Sabrina, posing next to him with a grin on her face. Now next time is right after we have dinner together, and then our dance. We'll dine. We'll waltz, and then we'll both be princesses after that for our tea party. The night is young, little sister, and really we're just getting started. That's what I'm always afraid of, gulped Owen, staring at himself. A bit of pink blush, some powder against his complexion and some blended pink eyeshadows made quite the difference as he batted his already coated lashes. A natural yet ruby tone to his lips seemed to enhance them, and somehow even with his hair pulled back off his face, he saw no boy staring back at him. Little twists at each temple would look less girlish than swinging pigtails, but that would only be from a frontal view as he twisted his neck, seeing the big blue bow near his shoulder blades and the long wavy pony beneath it. He was at least not this prissy princess he feared being changed into, as the understated tea-length matronly blue tea-length romper dress seemed quite basic. He lifted the edges of the long dress, watching the white lacy apron flow with the skirt, and stretched his arms comfortably in the simple shirt blouse. She'd made him a princess just as she promised, as regardless of its simplicity she was the manly beast and he was the boy in the skirt as the delicate Belle. You keep saying that today, but we both know Belle's not afraid of the beast, bowed his sister, putting out her hand and then roaring in character. Now join me, Belle. I demand it. He rolled his eyes, grasping her furry clawed hand as into their kitchen they went as she had him sit at the head of the table. They dined on microwaved popcorn chicken as Beauty and Beast at opposite ends, sharing a meal as he ate slowly, taking as much time as he could. That she expected as she actually ate like Beast, devouring her food in no time, trying to hint to him to get moving, yet he ignored her little pleading. Another half-hour of mindless conversation would begin to test her patience as she wanted to play, and he wanted to dilly-dally. She gave him options about games they could play as Beauty and Beast, but he would change the subject and stall. Finally she gave up waiting, tossing her plate in the sink, and went back into the bedroom, returning with her fists filled with extensions and a bag of accessories. His eyes would pop from the bag as out came a container of sparkling gems, and then she opened a large makeup palette of glittery colors. He swallowed hard, knowing he might have really stirred the beast as she tossed more items on the table and then pushed away his plate. Okay then. Dinner's over, so time to change, said Sabrina, reaching up, grabbing the bow from his hair. I thought the princess would be a bit more civilized and cooperative, but if you want a beast then I'll show you the beast. Who knew the beast pulled hair, and that hurts, Sabrina. Owen felt the yank back as he reached for his plate, grabbing the brownie. Maybe you go change first into whatever princess stuff you planned while I finish eating. Oh, I think you're done, Belle, smiled Sabrina, pulling the brownie from his hand. I wasn't, and why don't we just hang out and have tea, said Owen, pushing aside some of the stuff on the table. You know we can change later since these costumes are a set, and I'd hate to ruin that. What a little fashionista you're becoming, little sis, worrying about if we match, said Sabrina, squeezing his cheeks. I love that, but don't worry, when I'm done with you we still will. It's becoming so much more obvious how much you're wanting to be more of a girly girl, and that I love even more. Please don't say that, grumbled Owen as she released his face. Could have fooled me, and you did your whole tutoring class, teased Sabrina, smacking his wrist as he reached for the brownie. Now do not think of touching that brownie while I work on you, because I will kill you if you get any chocolate on anything, especially your next dress. It's a special dress Mommy bought for a special princess. Yeah, that princess was you, said Owen, staring at her as she dipped her brush into a gold glitter. Was, but I don't fit in it anymore, so it's wonderful that my little sister does, smiled Sabrina. Eyes closed, princess, and what a treat it is that it can be used again. I'm not sure I like the sound of that, gulped Owen, closing his eyes as she stroked across his lids. Like that matters, and you knew we'd be getting more fancy, said Sabrina, doing the other eye. Didn't you, Emma? Kinda, answered Owen, opening his eye, seeing her pull off the top to what looked like a black Sharpie. That looks like a lot of work. That maybe I'll go watch TV while you get dressed yourself and we can go fancier some another time. Nice try, little sis, and we can still get a little fancier when we have that double date with Frankie and Timmy, replied Sabrina, lifting his chin. You know now's good instead, said Owen, letting her work on him. I thought that would change your mind, and not to worry, I wouldn't want you to waste any time we could be playing, said his sister, pushing his eyes closed. You did enough of that at dinner, so do not open until I tell you, and be happy I prepared most of what we need while you were in tutoring, so we could move faster and get in everything I planned on tonight." "How wonderful," Owen replied, feeling her stroke across his lids. He sat wanting to die as she worked over and over on his eyes, until finally she allowed them to open again and he had to watch a pencil approach as he held them open. Back and forth she went, enhancing him cosmetically like never before, as her giggle and snide comments would turn his stomach as she painted his face. It would probably seem 2 or 3 times longer than it actually must have been, until finally she stepped back, sizing up her work, and then nodded, seemingly satisfied with the result. She allowed him to watch as she dipped a big brush into a container of glitter and began spreading it across his face, as he had little choice but to close his eyes, knowing the glimmer was being added. When finally it stopped and he opened his eyes again, seeing a little applicator with reddish-pink color approach his lips and grease on a much brighter new color. She was all business now, untwisting his hair at each temple and tossing pins on the table before a few strokes of her brush would be followed by a mist of heat protectant. A pinch of a section between her fingers would next be trailed by 2 flat blades squeezing some strands, as her thin flat iron would soon clamp and stretch his hair down each cheekbone. A few strokes down each side from his ear outward would be enough to remove any mess from the twists before she clamped down the iron for a few seconds longer, this time in the other direction, curling his hair away from his face. He could see the thick waves bouncing off his cheekbone as his sister brushed the crown of his hair into her hand and took a number of pins from the table, slapping them in his hand. "One at a time, you hand me these after I get enough teased," Sabrina told him with a comb raking down his hair. He was almost happy he couldn't see as she doused section after section with hairspray and flipped his hair forward as she teased. 2 minutes of this would be cringe-worthy enough until she lifted a dark piece of foam from the table and oddly set it atop his head. He could feel the bonding of the hairspray being stretched or broken as she gently brushed back the teased sections, and then felt a band tug wrap down from front to back. She began taking pin after pin now, as he could feel them sliding from outward and from before finally they had all been used, and she sprayed his head again. "Wow, that's pretty good, and I haven't even added any extensions yet," said Sabrina, patting his head and spritzing a few spots. "Besides the fact we get to play like this, I'm going to be able to do so much with your pretty hair if you can't get any haircuts." "No, Mom said if the barber shops don't eventually open that she was going to cut it eventually." Owen watched her lift a long extension from the table. "You really think so after how much she enjoyed putting bows in it?" Sabrina said as she was brushing his hair in the back before stretching it as he felt a snap at his nape. "I'm not even going to try to answer that," replied Owen, looking over and watching her take another weft from the table. From the back now came a series of long wavy sections, so much wider and longer than before, as the next one clamped down behind his head. 2 more would follow as she lifted and arranged their edges until his natural hair had been merged into the extensions. A few quick twists of her curling iron on the top layer of his own hair would be enough to mimic the long waves, and then he could feel the pressure as she blended it into one long princess-like style. To his left shoulder she flipped his new mane before she unzipped his romper and then had him stand as she dropped it from his shoulders. "I think you're going to love your new look," said his sister, unbuttoning his blouse. "I'm guessing it's more what you expected when I said you'd be a princess." "Somehow I doubt you were ever guessing," said Owen, as she pulled it off his shoulders as he stood now in only his hose as she changed his shoes. "Well, no, but you're even prettier than I thought with your makeup like this," replied Sabrina, sliding down his white hose and having him step into nude hose. "Now please, princess, I can't wait much longer to see you in your dress, so hold my shoulder while I get your shoes on." "Are these heels?" whined Owen, feeling the angle of his ankle, looking down stunned as he shifted his weight as the first shoe was on and she was putting on the other shoe. "They're just little heels, and you'll be fine in them," said Sabrina, standing up and then walking behind him, unzipping a dress. "Again, just hold my shoulder and now step in carefully." He turned beet red as he looked down at his feet strapped into the little plastic sling-back kitten heels before suddenly he became fixated on all the sparkle as she held open his dress. It would be only seconds until he found himself having to step into the costume ballroom gown, and then up it came encasing him in the huge garment. He could barely breathe as his arms went through the holes at each shoulder and then gasped as she zipped up the back. Before he could even utter a complaint, the first glove would slide up his left arm and turn past his, snugging beneath his bicep as he stood transfixed. Over his right hand now the second elbow-length glove would be fitted over his fingers, and then as he looked down, feeling the pressure at the ends of his glued-on nails beneath them before being somewhat awakened by a pinch at his right lobe. He wasn't sure whether he would tip over or fall flat on his face when she stepped back after clipping on the right earring, leaving him standing alone. She'd taken all this dressing to an entirely new level as he could barely breathe, gliding his gloved hands down the huge skirt before glancing up and watching her slide her head back inside her beast mask. "Shall we, Belle?" His sister bowed after sliding on her furry gloves and then stepping back away from him towards the living room. "I don't know if I can in this." Owen was almost afraid to take a step. "Such a princess," laughed Sabrina, waving him over. "Now come on. Start with baby steps which you've already mastered and I'll help you." "Haha." Owen replied sarcastically as she came back to him, putting out her arm. "Fine, but I think I'm going to fall on my face." "You won't. Take my arm, my princess, and shuffle very slowly," said his sister, putting his hand on her arm. "I got you." "Got me?" said Owen, taking a step with her. "I hope so, as I think I'm ready to pass out." "Oh please, and follow along with me," laughed his sister, guiding him into the living room. "We'll practice a few times and then we'll try our dance." "Oh no." Owen walked gingerly until they stopped and she began positioning him. "I'm not ready." "I think this is too far, Sabrina." "No, you've come so far and you're no longer just a cutie, or just pretty," said his sister, turning his face. "You're simply beautiful, so enjoy it. Soak it in while you can, princess." She rubbed his back and then moved from his line of sight as he saw his reflection in the large ornate living room mirror over the fireplace. Ruby-glossed lips would glisten back at him, but that would be nothing as that sparkle now came from every direction. The faux jewels and glittered fabric of the immense dress would shine in every direction as it wavered with even the slightest movement. The shimmer of glittered hairspray and glimmer of the powder on his cheeks would add even more elements, but the gold-glittered eyeshadow would pop off his face. He wanted to cry stuck like this, cautiously taking each little step in the kitten heels, yet his sister knew him well and knew just how to calm him down. She was gentle and kind, carefully guiding him into position as in a strange way he felt comforted in her arms. He'd danced with his sister at a family wedding once, but never like this, as forward and then back they stepped as she instructed him ever so patiently. This was dress up at a whole new level, as he'd look at her furry mask and then over at his reflection. Playing princesses was one thing, but being treated so delicately was even more of a change to their games, as he was the girl that was being made to feel quite precious. With each little step though, he realized it wasn't that hard as he did as she asked until mercifully she paused their dance, letting go of his hand. "I think you have it, Belle," said his sister through the mask, seemingly finally satisfied and backing away. "Take this and give me a second to set up, then we'll try it for real." Into his glove now she handed a single rose as he looked down at himself holding it. He smirked, shaking his head almost not believing he was standing there grasping it, and then he stared up at his reflection again, admiring himself. Across each cheekbone a curled wing slid away from his face before twisting downward in front of each ear. Behind it, little yellow drop earrings wavered just outside his very rosy cheeks as he batted his thick curled lashes, amazed at the intricacy of his eye makeup. With a thick top liner and a series of intricate shadows blending into glittery gold, it was hard to believe he had sat there while she did this to him. Almost as unbelievable at the crown of his head, both sides and the top of his hair had been teased up and brushed over that weird dark sponge, delivering a puffy top bun. Beneath the sparkly bun that gleamed from glittered hairspray, a satin-like gold band hit all the pins as it surrounded the base of the bun, delivering such height to the wonderfully coiffed half-up style. That though would just be the start of formal style, as behind it the half-down portion streamed down his back in a series of loose brushed-out curls. His hair had never looked as full, as long layers of thick brunette extensions had delivered lavish waves spanning down to his waistline. Add little kitten heels hidden beneath the huge tiered classic yellow gold ballroom gown and matching elbow-length gloves, and his sister had left no detail unaccounted for, as he stood holding the rose which was as red as his lips. The huge ballroom gown wavered in every direction as he struggled just to stand still, almost lost inside the layers of satin and tulle. From head to toe he would sparkle and glisten as he stared at himself, captivated by his own image until a flash would awaken him from his gaze. "You should smile more," said his sister, with her furry gloves messing with her phone. "It's nice to see. You were just..." Owen started to say nervously. "Taking pictures?" answered his sister. "Don't you worry about that, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying a moment feeling good about yourself." "I wasn't," grumbled Owen. It's okay, and I'm glad," said his sister, hitting a button and putting down the phone. "Let's give it a try now, Belle." Finally she positioned her phone after having connecting it to her Bluetooth speaker, and then slid her furry gloves back on as she approached him. Into position she went, moving his hands and then taking hold of him as the music came on. The familiar sound soon resonated inside his ears as he'd be stuck in the tale as old as time, ever so gracefully being twisted by his sister's furry hand to the vocals of John Legend and Ariana Grande. At least he finally didn't have to look at the sarcastic smirk on her face as he tried not to look at her eyes in the mask slits, wondering what she had in mind next as she led their dance. She had told him she'd also be a princess as well next, and maybe that would give him a moment's peace if she needed to put in as much work to get ready as she put into him. The more he thought about it though he zoned out, wondering what else she'd be putting him through as it couldn't be more elaborate than this. He knew she had dressed up Sleeping Beauty, Ariel and Cinderella, yet which one would she be, and he knew in her closet there were probably more. Would she make him stay like this, he wondered while she got into character herself, and then he realized they were gliding as they danced without issue once she stepped back. Ever so slowly now she was spinning him before they joined arms again as they came back close, and then he almost couldn't believe it had all clicked. Around again they went as Owen couldn't control his smile as he shocked himself, having mastered the steps and was now having fun with it. They were in the zone when finally the song ended, and then she stepped back, squeezing both of his hands, looking through the mask before she pulled him in, hugging him. "Impressive, kids," a voice startled both of them. "Looks like my dance school money has been well spent." "Dad," said Sabrina through the mask as he was tossing his keys on a table and putting down his briefcase. "I didn't hear you come in." "Yeah, didn't want to break that moment and I was enjoying it," said their father, walking over and hugging them. "You two were amazing, so don't mind me, and have fun." As the hug broke, he walked into the kitchen, never saying a word as Owen just looked at Sabrina as she smiled, pulling her mask off. "You were enjoying it?" asked Owen meekly. "Very much." Their father opened the refrigerator. "I guess Sabrina's been teaching you some moves while you two have been stuck at home." "Kind of," replied Owen mortified, hearing the commotion as he was making his plate. "Of course I have, and Dad, did you need me to fix you anything?" yelled Sabrina. "Mom won't be home for a while still." "Honey, you're the best, but no thanks," yelled out her father. "I'm just making myself a sandwich and then heading in for a nap. I just worked almost 20 hours straight and I'm wiped." "Okay," said Sabrina. "I bet." "Oh, and how did tutoring go today, Owen?" his father asked while making his sandwich. "You getting it now?" "Yes, Dad," yelled Owen. "Things really clicked for me today." "Perfect, and I'll fix your lock when I wake up later," said their father, stuffing some food in his mouth. Plus your mom said it's been good for both of you having a sleepover. I want you to be close and share. We are Daddy, said Sabrina, dropping down her mask. Ready for the next song, Belle? Has anyone ever had to ask if you've been ready to dance pumpkin, and you look like your mother all made up like that, said their father, walking in with a plate and kissing Owen atop the head and rubbing Sabrina's back before turning for his room. Now play nice beast, and make sure you record all this dancing because I'm sure your mother's wishing she was here to watch it. You don't think? Owen said, astonished as he left the room. That's everything clicked for you? Who knew, but of course it has, grinned Sabrina. You click everywhere so perfectly in those heels that I'm sure you forgot you even have them on now. Not what I meant, and you know that? Owen rolled his eyes. Whatever, little sis, and don't be that stuck-up princess all of a sudden, laughed Sabrina, pulling off the mask. You're doing so well now. Please, Sabrina, said Owen, a little stunned. Fine, smirked Sabrina. You mean that he might have thought you were me? So did he, gulped Owen. I told you that you looked beautiful, smiled Sabrina. So like it matters? Yeah, but that was Dad, not some random stranger, said Owen, glancing again at his reflection, staring at his face next to Sabrina's without her mask on. Who all thought you were a pretty girl, Sabrina made a silly face. Hint. Hint to Daddy. Maybe I can keep you as my little sis? Please just kill me? Owen grimaced as she could barely stop cracking herself up laughing. No, they never kill off the pretty princesses, and Mom isn't even allowing me to change you until after she sees you firsthand, said Sabrina, dropping down her mask and clicking on the next song. Now shall we, Belle? Oh God, you've been sending her pictures again. Girls never keep things from other girls, smiled Sabrina, reaching out and grabbing his hand. And don't forget it's Friday night, so I already have permission for us to stay up late and play. Now shall we? Owen closed his eyes as he had little choice, taking her hand as into the next dance they went. He'd spend the next hour as Belle dancing and playing until his mother got home and made a huge fuss over them. It would be a lot easier later as he'd be Elsa and she was Anna as they sang songs with their mother as she played with them into the night. Owen could barely keep his eyes open when mercifully their mother said it was time for bed, but he'd need to sleep with his sister again as their father had yet to wake up. In the morning he'd be at her mercy again during her last day of playtime, finding her ready to go the second she woke him up. Dance class with her as the teacher in matching tutus would be first on the agenda, followed by more made-up time at pretend cheer. Big bows and heavy makeup would be like nothing to him now as again she played the trainer with him being the cheer rookie learning moves. Her games had easily occupied the morning and early part of the day as they talked so freely about so much this day, and then finally she surprised him ending them early as they sat having a snack, taking a break together. So I was thinking we're done, and wanted to tell you how much I loved you for being such a good sport during my turn, said Sabrina, taking out a wipe and beginning to take off his makeup. You better, laughed Owen, sitting there as she wiped it away. I do, and you don't have to say it back, but I just wanted you to know, smiled Sabrina, pulling off his left thumbnail. Plus, also that you're my bestie. Well, I guess bestie is better than little sis, right? Grinned Owen as off came a few more as she cleaned his bare nails as she worked. Maybe, but that doesn't mean you can be both, said Sabrina. And regardless of what you're wearing and even if we never play like this again, to me you'll always be both. I guess if that's just between us, then that's okay then, Owen replied as she began on the other hand now. Really, if it is truly just between us, then I love the idea that we're besties, and don't you dare repeat this, but if it wasn't for all the crazy makeup, then I didn't mind being your little sis. And just so you know, I knew you didn't, smiled Sabrina, moving down his hand. I know you liked the attention and being adorable. You always have. Maybe, blushed Owen, watching the last nail come off and then stretching his extension-less fingers. Maybe meaning yes, and even without a stick of makeup or those pretty nails, you're still beautiful, little sis, said Sabrina, leaning over and sweeping his hair out of his eyes. Now did you want to try on what I thought you'd like wearing out today? Try on? Asked Owen as she took his hand, leading him towards his room. Wait, I thought Dad unlocked my door and Mom ironed me something for today. He did, and she did as well, but it's a special day and I thought you'd like to at least consider something more special, said Sabrina, opening his door. But it was just a thought after everything we've talked about, and completely up to you? Oh boy, gulped Owen. Wow, are you kidding? Yeah, I'll give you a minute, bestie, and I'm going to go get dressed myself, said Sabrina, partially closing his door. Meet me in my room and whatever you decide, but I have everything ready that goes with it if you want to wear it. There was silence throughout the house for a good 10 minutes as they each got ready, and then Owen came in, needing to talk. Back and forth he came and went, asking questions until slowly but surely she helped him when asked. Finally he had made some choices, and then she almost had him ready when Sabrina's ears perked up hearing what seemed like their mother's car pull into the driveway. Mom, is that you? Sabrina asked, hearing the front door unlock. Yes, honey, I'm home early just like I promised, replied her mother, looking at the mail and tossing her keys on the table. You done playing with little Emma like we talked about so we can have some regular family time? Kind of, and we're really not playing right now, Sabrina replied. Just give me 2 minutes and we'll be out. The fizzing sound of hairspray would now be continually starting and stopping before being followed by the dull sound of the blow dryer. Back and forth these sounds would start and stop with some long silent pauses in between for a few minutes, until finally there would be a cracking of her bedroom door. So Mom, how much longer until Dad is home? Sabrina yelled out. About an hour, honey, so please end the games soon, said her mother, sitting at the table, paging through a magazine. Remember we said this was supposed to be Owen's communion, so we thought we'd at least take a walk as a family. I thought the same thing, Mom. In fact, we both knew we were, said Sabrina, walking into the kitchen. I'm wearing the dress you bought me to wear for it. Oh my God, you are, said her mother, getting excited. You look gorgeous, honey. Thank you, smiled Sabrina. And that's the thing, Mom. I thought that would be perfect for everyone and Daddy will already be in a suit, so I pressed your dress for you. Really? Said her mother. The one we picked out together that I planned on wearing to the communion? Of course, Mom, smiled Sabrina. We're both already dressed like you asked, and I thought I'd save you some time, then you could help me with a few things. Although really I've gotten everything together, so mostly I need a little help with hair. Sure, anything you want, honey, but I love how your hair turned out, said her mother, touching her face then her hair. And really, as much as I'd love to wear that dress, even just for the walk so we could snap a few pictures together, I just couldn't. As beautiful as you already look, I'd feel guilty that we'd be dressed up like we planned, and maybe you forgot we couldn't get your brother's white communion suit out of the tailor before it was ordered to close. No, I didn't forget, and that's exactly why I could use a little help with hair, Mom, smiled Sabrina, turning and walking back into the bathroom. Let me get your scissors and everything else just in case. Honey, you're confusing me, said her mother, making a puzzled face. Why would we need to cut or even recurl you hair? I told you I love how it looks today. Me too, but you're the best at bangs, Mom. Sabrina walked back into the kitchen with her mother's long thin silver scissors, a curling iron and basket of hair accessories. But I just cleaned up all your layers 2 weeks ago, and I thought you were growing your bangs out, her mother asked. They're already down past your chin, so why this sudden change? I wasn't talking at all about my hair, grinned Sabrina, shaking her head and putting down the basket on the table. You didn't? Said her mother, raising her voice. Sabrina, I told you I wanted these games over with before family time, and you promised me they would be. You know what an important day this would have been, and I was waiting for the barber to eventually reopen, as you know I'm not comfortable cutting boys' hair. We stopped the games hours ago, Mom, and I think you'll be pleased with what I did, but I'm nervous about her bangs, said Sabrina, looking away. Honestly, they look a little off to me, but it's been a while since I had them and I wasn't talking about boys' hair. Her bangs? Asked her mother, confused. Well, I figured you're amazing at bangs, so better you fix them than I try to trim them again and they turn out too short, Sabrina explained. Trim them? Oh, Sabrina? Her mother rolled her eyes and grabbed her head. What have you done? Hopefully something good? Sabrina replied with a big grin on her face before calling out. Come show Mommy Emma, and she's going to fix you. As Owen stepped out of the bedroom and turned the corner towards the kitchen, Mrs. Everett clutched Sabrina's arm, almost squeezing it from the socket. It would be a sea of pure white, taking calculated steps towards her as she looked pale until he stopped about 10 feet away, bowing his head for a minute towards the floor and then taking a breath and looking up at her. I know, Mommy, said Owen, meekly looking up. I know they are crooked, but you can fix them, right? Huh? Sighed their mother, covering her mouth. You look, whose dress is that? Well, she tried on mine, but it didn't fit so well and I kind of expected that, said Sabrina. It's my tiara, veil and shoes, but she's a lot shorter than I was at her age, and maybe a size or two different. This one, well, it's pretty much exactly her size. Wait. Is that mine? Asked their mother, grabbing her chest. You took that out of the storage in the back of my closet? We were both thinking you wouldn't mind, explained Sabrina. Even if I would have squeezed her in my dress, it still would have gotten filthy dragging across the ground, but Emma thought this would make it even more special. Emma thought that? Gasped their mother. Honey, I'll need to hear that for myself? Yes, Mommy, said Owen, looking down shyly. I mean, Sabrina suggested it, but I'm sorry. I'll go take it off. No, said their mother, tearing up. Let me look at you first. Okay, sighed Owen, shivering now and unable to look up at her. Turn around and let me see the back, ordered her mother, taking a breath. Oh God! Look at your hair. Those curls! Aren't they pretty? I'll never complain again, as I realize how much work it is now doing all these, but it's definitely worth it, said Sabrina, chiming in, walking over and lifting the veil. I tried hard with them, Mom, and I used more of your extensions than I thought I'd need, plus mixed in some of what you got me for my birthday, almost like some layers of mild highlights. I was thinking you wouldn't mind that either, so please fix her bangs for me. Oh God, gulped their mother, wiping a tear. Turn back around and answer me honestly. You really wanted to wear that dress? Almost like this would have been your big day, honey? Before these last few days? No, said Owen, turning beet red. But then when I was changing out of my cheer outfit earlier and her time playing dress up with me was over. We were talking, and well? His mother saw him with his hands folded, squeezing his fingers, ashamed. Well, continue, honey. Well, then when she reminded me that today would have been the big day and we'd be spending some time reflecting on that, said Owen, swallowing hard. Well, then we got to talking and I asked her what it was like. I told her how much I've always loved that big picture in the living room of her in that dress on her big day, and then you asked her to be in it, said his mother, still stunned. Almost like this would have been your big day, honey. Not exactly, and she didn't dress me originally. She just hung it there and I hesitated, but eventually I put it on, nodded Owen. At first I was just curious, then she suggested we add a few curls just so I could get the effect, but I got more curious. And disappointed when it didn't look right or fit right, Sabrina joined in. Don't be mad at him for that part, Mom. I guess now I realize it was wrong to want you to see him like this, but it felt right at the time. I pulled out your dress and did the rest. Maybe, but she's not to blame. It's still all on me, Mom, said Owen, taking a breath. I fell in love with how it felt in her dress, but then how I looked in your dress. I'm not even sure I can explain it, but then I just wanted it all. All the curls. The veil. The tiara. The whole experience. Please don't be mad, but it was me, not her. I'm the one that wanted to feel the innocence of the little girl in the white dress in the picture, and for a short time, especially the moment I stared at myself in the mirror, working up the courage to walk out here, shivering, hoping you'd think I looked okay like this? I guess maybe I did. Just okay? Asked his mother. When a little girl wears a dress like that, she wants to feel special, and she should. Really, it's one of the most special days of her life, and I remember feeling more special than I probably ever felt before. A tiara fit for a princess surrounded by delicate curls and a dress and veil resembling something you'll only wear again when you walk down the aisle. Now you're asking me to fix your bangs so everything will be perfect, and did all this, just hoping I'd think you look okay? Well? Owen shyly looked down, fiddling with his nails. Honey, you don't need my acceptance to feel pretty, said his mother, touching his hand. But if you're asking me right now, then you've never looked more beautiful. Told you she'd think that, smiled Sabrina. Really? Owen began tearing up. Yes, really, and maybe we were mostly playing these last few days, but you always looked pretty. In fact, I never looked that gorgeous in that dress, smiled his mother, wiping a tear before picking up her scissors and a brush from the table. But as gorgeous as your hair came out, Emma, you are not leaving this house with crooked bangs, so come here and I'll fix them. Owen wiped his eyes and then walked over to his mother as she cupped his chin with her left hand and then brushed through the bangs created by his sister. After a few quick strokes, she took the small spray bottle, cautiously dampening the small section on her forehead before running a comb through them 2 or 3 times. Wait, did you say leaving the house? Owen asked as she stretched them between her fingers, checking their length. Now's not the time to fidget or they will be way too short. Chin up, and be very still, said his mother, again tightening his face and then positioning the blade at the outside of his left eye socket. Text Daddy that we'll meet him at the park where we planned on taking a few pictures, and then get my blow dryer please, Sabrina. Of course, Mom, said Sabrina, jumping right on her phone. But Mom, I wasn't thinking I'd be going anywhere like this, or even that Daddy would see me this way. Owen felt them shear across the bridge of his nose. I just wanted to feel what this was like and let you see me. And I wasn't thinking I'd be giving you bangs, or seeing you in my dress, but here we are, honey, said his mother, brushing them again. Eyes closed for 1 more second so I can make sure they're perfect like my precious daughter, and then I'll blow them out. Once the blade sheared one last time across the bridge of his nose, he peeked open his eyes, seeing all the little trimmings in his mother's hand before she dumped them into a napkin, folding it closed. Her round brush would tug on them, rolling them under for just a few seconds as she spun her wrist, quickly blowing out the dampness. When she put it down, she would instantly lift a wide-barreled curling iron, horizontally sliding it down his bangs once and then again before rolling under just the ends. The short sizzle would be nothing like that of the long-bound tendrils that streamed down his back, as 5 seconds later, his bangs had taken shape and the curved edges sat turned towards his brows. Down came her left palm, hindering his vicin as the misting of hairspray would be blocked from getting in his eyes before she moved her hand, lifting his veil. With his vision cleared of obstruction and hairspray raining down once again on his curls, he looked up, seeing his sister smile towards him before softly nodding, and then it was over, as he was the girl like his sister in the picture he never really dreamed he would be. Your daughter? Gulped Owen, feeling himself quiver. That sounds so nice, said his mother, fussing with the veil and checking the tiara. And give me a couple more bobby pins, Sabrina, and then go in my bedroom in the bottom drawer of the big dresser and bring me a few of your petticoats that say size small. I'd like to get this dress up just a touch, and there's 3 or 4 around that size, so one of them will work. Petticoats? Owen asked. What's a petticoat? Just a little trick to puff out your dress a little, and don't worry, do you think I'd ruin all this? Said his mother, twisting his hips. Turn for me, baby. No, I wasn't thinking that at all, Mom, said Owen as she untied the big bow in the back and unzipped the dress a little. Then why worry, and let me try that one first, Sabrina, said his mother, taking one from her and lifting his dress. Hold her dress up, please. He stood now as his sister held up his dress, lifting one foot at a time, allowing his mother to manipulate him until he felt some elastic snap around his waistline. When his dress came down and then she adjusted the skirt, he could see the difference before she spun him, zipping the back. Oh, that's perfect, said Sabrina as his mother was trying the bow again. And Daddy said that works better. I figured it would, and he's on his way, said their mother, checking the fit and fussing with the dress. And that does work. Just pack her purse with hairspray and some extra pins while I go change. You're ready, Emma. I'm not sure I am, Mom. Daddy thought I was Sabrina and not me yesterday when he saw me, said Owen, pushing his hand against his stomach. I feel sick. I feel lightheaded. Don't worry, honey, it's just nerves, and I think you'll find you look even more perfect with those pretty bangs that, let's not forget. Smiled his mother. You wanted. Oh boy. Owen began to perspire. Go look at yourself in the mirror like you did before I saw you and see for yourself, then when I get back in a minute we'll be ready to go, said his mother, stepping back and inspecting him one last time. If you're honest with yourself like I asked you to be earlier, then all you'll see now is of this pristine and precious little angel, so Daddy will be fine with it. He's always wanted another little princess anyway, and today you've given us one, so stop worrying. This was your idea, my love, so time to be a big girl. Owen already knew pretty much what he looked like, yet as he turned taking in his slightly updated image, he could barely breathe, petrified he'd be leaving the house like this. It would be one thing to sit in a carriage with no one the wiser or jump in pigtails with all the kids he knew still in class, but this would be a Saturday afternoon in the park in a dress for all to see. He'd always been captivated by his sister's portrait-like picture in her white dress and fancy curls, never dreaming that would ever be him, yet here he was. Daddy's little girl wasn't supposed to be him, except maybe he hadn't thought this through carefully, as he'd now somehow trapped himself into becoming her, yet he certainly didn't look like a big girl. In an intricate beaded white sleeveless satin bodice and an ankle-length layered skirt, he was now the little girl in the communion dress. An understated faux belt line of pearls and rhinestones matched those sewn throughout the elaborate satin bodice, as 30 years in storage had done nothing to affect its luster. It was a timeless dress that fit him almost as if he'd just come from a final fitting, as it would be clear that he shared more of his mother's genetics than he ever thought. The snug bodice would be exactly how it was meant to fit, and even if she was slightly taller at the same age, there would be no way to tell, as the petticoat pushed the dress up just enough that its length would no longer be an issue. The puffy 4-layered skirt now seemed a perfect length, as airy layers of satin and tulle atop a crinoline petticoat felt weightless, yet delivered the heavy declaration. He tried to wiggle his toes, yet the round closed-toe shoe design were nothing like the dress-up baby Mary Jane's, as the sturdy white patent leather never wavered or allowed his toes to move. Little white tights would be one of the only things quite familiar, as with the ankle straps, except now a pearl and rhinestone bow sat atop the strap holding his feet firmly inside on the shiny, pristine, 2-inch block heels. If the dress or shoes alone weren't enough of a proclamation of his newfound preciousness, his sister's princess tiara sitting prominently atop the crown of his head might do the trick. Just staring at it shine like a beacon and moving his head slightly, it was like his senses of awareness had been heightened, as even just the slightest twitch would elicit a springing of curls. At a minor turn of his neck toward the left, sending an avalanche of spiral tendrils off his right shoulder, and he was almost afraid to reach up his hand to move what looked so fragile, as finally he let out a gasp, needing to breath. Just like his sister before him and every girl on the special day, he'd been given a hairdo fit for a princess, yet not some Disney one. Inside the curve of his tiara, a series of thick brunette coils had been rolled from his natural hair and pinned in a basket-weave patterned bun, forming part of a gorgeous intermingled formal half-updo. Behind it, dark layer after layer of continual thick curls well down his back, jiggling with every movement, would be as unfamiliar a sensation as that of the scratchy long thin veil that they rebounded beneath. Whatever time Sabrina had spent on him to create the mastery she was proud to have produced, seemed undeniably well spent even before his mother added some tweaks as he reached up his little French nail, pushing at the ends of his unwavering bangs. Sabrina was right, that perfect little bangs fronting a dazzling tiara made a huge difference as they added the finishing touch to Daddy's new little angel. With a thick rounded shape spanning straight across his brow line before ever so slightly angling down towards each ear, his mother had sheared them meticulously like his sister tried, but could never have. Just that simple cut, though, delivered a delicateness no boy in a dress would reveal, as instead it resulted in a more soft, feminine facial appearance. Behind perfect bangs with his face framed in a few springy ringlets fronting each ear, the natural roundness of his face and plump cheekbones were now undeniably girly. Without a stitch of makeup, he looked as stunning as any young girl could as his mother returned, ready to go, looking flawless with her face done and in her dress. "So how are those nerves now, Emma?" His mother tossed some items in her bag. "Ready, sweetheart?" "Oh God," said Owen, feeling his stomach drop. "No chance." "She's ready, Mom," said Sabrina, grabbing her pocketbook. "And that's how we all feel, sis." "Somehow I don't think so," said Owen as his sister handed him a small matching handbag. "Well, I still have a few diapers, and I can toss a few in the car just in case," teased his mother, before getting serious and holding out her hand. "Now come on, you look beautiful, and we're all ready, so let's go. Out the door, and stop thinking so much." "I know this was my choice, but it's hard not to," said Owen, walking over and taking her hand. "It's still you under there, and I love you," said his mother, crouching down, hugging him for a brief moment and then sliding some curls off his cheek, looking at him. "You know that, right?" "Yes, Mom," said Owen, biting his lip. "Good, then let's go." "And seriously, Sabrina," said her mother, standing up while slightly annoyed. "Maybe you cheat a little with a little mascara or a clear lip gloss, but you don't wear makeup to a communion. Why would you put blush on her?" "Yeah, I didn't," giggled Sabrina. "But she does have some rosy cheeks, and if you want, I have mascara and a clear gloss in my purse, so I'll do it for her in the car." "If we ever leave," said their mother, turning and walking toward the door, holding his hand. "Get a few pillows off the couch before she's a wreck before we even get there." Sabrina lifted her arm, showing the beach bag, having already packed everything, knowing these drills of being the dressed-up girl, as out the door they went. On a Saturday afternoon, there were kids riding bikes everywhere and people walking down the sidewalk, but they'd be nothing more than admiring onlookers, as their mother was all business, cautiously getting him in the car. A throw pillow would be placed just behind his back by Sabrina as he climbed into the back seat as his mother held his dress, instructing him on how she wanted him to sit. Before he could even lean back, they ever so softly lifted his curls on each side to his shoulders before the second pillow would be placed behind him atop the first, and then his mother gently guided him back. "It's barely a 10-minute ride, so don't lean all the way back if you can avoid it," lectured his mother, placing a towel across his waistline and then another on an angle, pulling the seatbelt on him. "There's no outlet for a curling iron or a steamer where we're going, so flat curls or a wrinkled dress I can't fix outside the house, okay, honey?" Okay," said Owen, almost afraid to move as she clicked in the belt. Thank you. Time to learn that sometimes it's not so easy staying perfect, smiled his mother, carefully closing the door. But part of being a girl. You'll be fine, said Sabrina, turning his face and then pinching down on his lashes. They hadn't even made it out of the driveway yet as the lash curler clamped down, squeezing him. They would be no problem curling and brushing through as they drove, but Sabrina had to wait until they stopped to add some mascara. His quivering was ignored as she coated them at traffic lights, and then eventually she rubbed on a touch of a clear gloss. He could barely control his shivering as she pulled into the parking lot, and then really wished he was in his diaper when she opened his door as the soft breeze blew inside the car. Mom, I think I have to. Owen squeezed his legs together as she reached in to pop his seatbelt. You don't, and do not even think of letting the car touch your dress when you get out. Time to focus, young lady, and get your mind right, said his mother, taking the towel from his lap and tossing it over to Sabrina. Now, even though I just had it washed a few days ago, all it takes is a speck of dirt to ruin a dress like that, and I don't even want a blade of grass near those white shoes. Sabrina will come around and help you out, sweetheart, while I hold the skirt. Owen could feel his legs shaking as he stepped up from the seat and then took Sabrina's hand as his mother held the big dress, making sure it made no contact with the car as he gingerly stepped out and sidestepped the small section of grass. He could barely feel his feet touch the ground when he took his first step on the pavement before his mother stopped him, straightening his skirt before he could take another. I know you're excited, but just a minute please, his mother told him as there he stood in public being twisted and fussed with, like not a soul was around as she adjusted his dress. She started by running her hands down the bodice and then took some time to fluff the skirt. She seemed to not care who was walking by seeing her work as he tried not making any eye contact as people walked around them, giving no more than a glance. She stepped back for a moment, now seemingly unhappy, making a face, and shaking her head before pausing until a jogger went by, then stepped behind him, untying the bow at the back of the dress. Looking straight ahead, Owen now only saw people with his backs to them as he was pretty surprised feeling her hands go under his dress. Like lightning, he felt her nail tips push up the petticoat just a bit and then a minor snap of the elastic near his navel. Before he could take a breath, her hands were out like it never happened and he felt a little jerk as she tugged on the ends of the bow. Be still, baby, and sorry, but it's fine now, said his mother as she began retying the bow. No matter what you do, these things tend to move a little when you're stuck in the car, but no one's the wiser and your dress is hanging perfectly now? Okay? Owen was petrified, looking around, feeling it tight at his waistline now again. You're welcome, doll, and turn for me, said his mother, turning his shoulders, inspecting before snapping her fingers at Sabrina. Okay, Bree, give me the hairspray and we're almost good to go after I get a minute on her hair. Without hesitation she took the hairspray from Sabrina, shaking the can, and then began to fuss with his hair with her fingers. Moving some curls on the left and then the right seemed harmless enough until she licked her index finger and slid it down his bangs. She signaled his sister to hold up the veil while she manipulated and repositioned some curls ever so gently with her fingers before hairspray began being directed at certain sections. He stood frozen like a mannequin, glancing up out of the corner of his eye, amazed at her meticulous focus, not making a peep as she moved his face at will with a finger under his chin, and then she followed by finger brushing his bangs. Her palm covering his eyes now would allow one last misting to cement his bangs, and then a few squirts at each temple would be followed by her encircling his head, delivering one last sticky dousing. A few stern pushes with her thumbs near the base of his tiara to make sure the hidden pins and combs were secure would be extremely annoying, but then finally it was over as she fussed with the veil. He was the little girl whose mother would settle for nothing but her daughter looking flawless, as she stepped back, really giving him a good final once-over, and then took his hand. His little French nails would now be cupped inside her hand as they began walking, and then he could barely look as he walked by so many people who glanced his way. Brief complimentary comments would randomly be thrown his way, telling him how beautiful he looked and admiring his dress. Mothers pushing carriages, female joggers and women just out for a walk took a moment out of their day to fuss over him, and in a way he ate it up. As a boy, his mother had always been positive, and even when he failed, went out of her way to praise him or give him confidence, but he never really experienced this type of flattery. As they stopped walking, he instantly recognized the scenic location where they paused, looking over and seeing a little boy in a white suit having his picture taken. He could barely look, panicked it could be a classmate as he turned away, and then Sabrina touched his shoulder, delivering some reassurance. "Relax, I think he's almost done, and believe me he's not going to know you," said Sabrina, moving his veil. "I heard them call him Sean? You have any Seans in your class?" "Oh, good." "I don't," said Owen, letting out a breath and gently turning away. "And if you did, it shouldn't matter," said his mother, touching his back and then crouching a little, fussing with the layers on his dress. "Now we are going to take a few pictures in a second when they're done and you're going to relax and smile for me, okay?" "I'll try," replied Owen. "Honey, maybe not today since we don't have your suit, but that could have been you in a white tie, but that's not the choice you made," lectured his mother, pushing up his chin, looking into his eyes while moving some curls onto his shoulders. "I expected to be fighting you to let me cut your hair when I got home today, and then slicking it to the side like that cute boys, but instead I was being asked to clip bangs and fix curls so you'll have to do better than try?" "Okay, Mom," said Owen, getting shy and turning red again. "Good, because you're the one that told me you wanted to feel what it was like to be in this dress and also what it was like to be the pretty girl admired in the big portrait, so you're about to." His mother touched his cheek. "Now it should be easy to smile big, because half the park already told you how beautiful you look and we didn't do all this for you to ruin the pictures with a grumpy face." "Did we?" "No, Mom," Owen answered, reaching up and squeezing her hand. "That's my girl, and Mommy will position you. It'll be fine. Now hold my arm and up on your toes a bit like a little ballerina so you don't scuff your white shoes on this uneven stone, then you can step flat once we get to the grass. Sabrina will hold your dress, but even then be careful, as those little heels might sink in a little and I still don't want anything to even have a chance of being dirted in the grass." As the boy before him snapped a few last shots, he stood holding his mother's arm, waiting his turn as he was about to get what he asked. It would be more complicated than he ever realized just to walk 5 yards as he lifted his heels and walked on his toes ever so delicately, cautiously navigating each uneven wide lawn stone. He was instantly that little debutante being treated like he was made out of china, stopping as he felt the squishy whoosh of the grass when he stepped from the last stone. "Toes down, and even steps, sis," said Sabrina from behind. "Don't worry, I have your dress." He had never walked so gingerly in his life, used to darting across the grass to catch a ball when instead he was suddenly navigating these green-bladed perils. As they got to the spot where she wanted to photograph him, just the journey seemed exhausting, and they hadn't even begun. More hairspray, a touch of freshened gloss and endless twisting of his dress would soon follow until every curl would be placed just where she wanted and the dress sat exactly as she wished. "Oh God, sweetheart," sighed his mother, getting choked up and wiping a tear before lifting the camera to her right eye. "Just smile and don't move a muscle, because that's exactly the pristine princess I think we were after today." Her emotion choked him up as well as he gasped, fighting back his angst and then began to smile with her encouragement as she snapped off a few shots. "That's it, and smile big, honey," said his mother, pausing for a moment and zooming in. "Standing like that you couldn't more beautiful, and these pictures are going to be spectacular." Soon a few became many, as shot after shot were snapped as she'd reposition him, adjust his dress and move his curls until she had everything to her liking for each shot. He was the pretty girl in the spotlight as people would stop to admire as they passed, enjoying their time walking through the park. 10 minutes of solo shots now seemed like a second in time as he relished the unforeseen attention and imagined his image on their wall next to his sister's. When finally his mother had exhausted the poses and disrupted his daydream, he'd be the pretty little sister again, taking some family shots with his sister. Her hug felt so wonderful but would be topped when she changed places with his mother. Just taking some mother-daughter shots almost melted his heart, but that warmth would soon turn to shivers when he looked up, seeing his father walking over to his sister. "Hey, Pumpkin," said their father, walking over and kissing her head as she was snapping some shots. "So who is your mother taking?" "Wait, is that my niece? Didn't she make communion last year?" "You mean Ashley?" grinned Sabrina. "Yeah, Daddy, she did, and it's not. I do see the resemblance now that you mention it, but maybe look again, since that's your other daughter." "Don't freak, honey," said his mother, with her teeth clenched, rushing over as fast as she could with her heels sinking in the grass. "I don't want you to make a big deal, and this is not the time or the place for a scene. She needs support." Oh my God. Her husband was shocked. "My other daughter? Her name is Emma, and I told you about their dress-up," said his wife, squeezing his arm. "I know, but—" he began to say, staring at Owen. "But nothing," said their mother, stepping in his line of sight. "Now stay calm, and I told you I had a still surprise today, so I'll need you to support her." "You put my son in his sister's dress?" mumbled Mr. Everett, glancing around her, trying to stay calm. "It's my dress, and Emma put it on herself," she said in his, holding him firmly with one hand over his mouth. "Now we're in public, and I'll also need you to just tell her she looks beautiful just like you would your other daughter." "You're kidding?" gasped Mr. Everett as she took her hand away, looking over at him. "Do I look like I am? And let's go," said Mrs. Everett in his ear. "The longer it takes to do, the more nervous you're making the poor girl." "Go ahead, Daddy." "It would mean the world to her," grinned Sabrina, leaning against her father, trying to relax the whole situation. "I can take a family shot of you three, and she really does look beautiful." "Why don't you go in too, dear, and I can take the shot," said a voice, approaching from behind them. "Father Murphy?" said Mrs. Everett, surprised. "What a nice surprise to see you out here today." "Long time no see, Mrs. Everett, and it's wonderful to see you too," said Father Murphy. "I haven't seen you in ages at our parish. Maybe since the kids were babies." "Oh yes, I miss it as well," said Mrs. Everett, patting her chest. "I'm sure you must recall we had to switch years ago when we moved across town." "Yes, I reminded him as well, and this was my surprise for today, bringing Father along," explained Mr. Everett. "I met Father on my walk over here, and he mentioned he's been spending some time with lots of the kids whose communions were canceled, so I thought that he'd spend a few minutes with your daughter," said their mother as her eyes bulged nervously. "What a pleasant surprise." "It's nothing official, of course," said Father Murphy. "Just some encouragement for the poor children that couldn't have their ceremony or celebrate that way we all expected. I do love seeing as many children as I can, and it's quite impressive the effort some of you have put in. I can see how important this was to you, so I honored your husband and he asked me to chat with her." "How wonderful," sighed their mother, getting nervous. "But I know you're busy and there are so many kids to see, so I'd feel terrible if I took time from any children from your own parish, so if you don't have time, we understand." "I have nothing but time these days, Mrs. Everett," joked Father Murphy. "You sure?" Ms. Everett asked. "She's also awfully shy?" "Don't worry, I'm used to that, and so many young ladies are at first, but then once you get them going, they're a joy to talk to. And you know the way your husband talked about her while we walked over, I thought you were talking about your son," joked Father, patting Mr. Everett's arm. "But I've spoken to so many wonderful people today, maybe I got confused or misheard." "There's so much confusion these days, Father," joked Mr. Everett, tapping him back. "She's kind of my boy in a way. Unlike my little slugger and tomboy, I guess." Not as beautiful as she looks today in that dress, she isn't, joked father, ushering him away. Now go stand with her for a few family shots I'll be happy to take, since she seems like she's so anxious waiting over there all alone, and then I'll spend a few minutes with the young lady. Of course, said Mrs. Everett, pulling him away before he could say more. Come, honey. Sorry, sweetheart, said his mother, coming over and rubbing his back and elbowing her husband. Daddy needed a minute, but he's here. And you look beautiful, honey, said his father, leaning down and kissing the top of his head. Really? Owen was shaking. Yes, said his father, standing behind him as they posed, softly rubbing his back. You kind of look like your mom when she was little. His compliment filled Owen with warmth as suddenly he was beaming and never smiled bigger. He was at ease now in family shots before eventually taking a few solos with his dad and then even the priest. With his newfound state of serenity, his mother made him take a few more solo shots before breaking the news that Father Murphy would be spending a few minutes talking to him. Okay, let someone else take some pictures now, Emma, and that family has been waiting patiently. Please come over, we're done, said his mother, signaling the family and then putting out her arm. Same drill though, honey, now as we walk back, so still no getting dirty, please. But Mom, gulped Owen, grabbing her arm. Spending time with me, and then what do I say? Excuse me, Mrs. Everett, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Tracy's mom, Joanne Walker, and our girls used to dance together, said a woman, stopping them before they walked off. I saw you taking such wonderful pictures and didn't want to interrupt. Oh, hello! So hard to recognize anyone with those masks on, said his mother. It is, but I recognized you and Sabrina right away since obviously you didn't have them on taking pictures, said Mrs. Walker, taking off her mask. So how have you been? And your daughter is breathtaking? Simply gorgeous in that dress? We've been great, and thank you, smiled Mrs. Everett. That's so kind, and what do you say, Emma? Thank you, said Owen, meekly holding on to his mother. You're welcome, and what a doll, said Mrs. Walker. That she is, smiled Mrs. Everett, squeezing Owen's hand. So that had to be what? 5 years ago since I last saw you, and how have you been? I think at least that, and well, thank you, said Mrs. Walker. My daughter hasn't danced since she was about your younger daughter's age, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable, so I'll keep my social distance, but could I ask you a quick favor? A favor? Replied Mrs. Everett, caught off guard. Sure, did you need me to snap a family shot for you? Not exactly, but my son is too shy to ask, so I am and he'd like to snap a quick shot with your daughter, said Mrs. Walker. He can't stop talking about how much she looks like the little girl he was going to walk in with, so it would be almost like he got to for a second. He's been so disappointed about it. You have no idea? Oh, I don't know, she's very shy, and with the virus and all, backpedaled Mrs. Everett. Just a quick shot, and I'll sanitize his hand immediately, said the woman, yanking her son's arm, squeezing the gel all over his hand. He has the biggest crush on her, and it'll be quick. On her, or my daughter, gulped Mrs. Everett. Just hold hands, kids, and these will be adorable, said the woman, yanking her son right over. 1, 2, 3, cheese, and say thank you, Brendan. Before she could even react, there would be Emma holding hands with this pushy woman's son as the flash bulbs began popping. 3 or 4 snaps would be all she allowed, and it was over in a flash as she quickly broke the session, pulling his hand from Brendan's. Okay then, said his mother, annoyed, pulling their hands apart. That was nice, and thank you, Mrs. Everett, said Brendan, nervously smiling at Owen. Bye, Emma. Okay, Brendan, and take care, said his mother, not happy, quickly grabbing Owen and yanking him away and sanitizing his hands. Walk, and don't scuff, sweetie. Even if there wasn't a pandemic, The nerve of some people. Mom, why? Gulped Owen as he walked off on his toes, rubbing his hands together. Why would you make me do that? I didn't, explained his mother. It just happened, and now I remember why we never had any play dates with them. The woman just didn't take no for an answer and caught me off guard. And I happened to get a pretty good shot of it too, smiled Sabrina, looking down at the back of the camera. I really don't remember his sister, but he's really cute. He isn't, and don't even tease about that. I think I know him, said Owen, getting upset. I think that's a boy I played t-ball against, and I am not wearing this dress because I like boys. Well, that's a discussion for a much later time in your life, honey, and unfortunately when you're pretty, boys will like you, said his mother, stroking his arm. Now the way he looked at you, he wasn't thinking you were any kid from t-ball, so better to have a cute boy have a crush on Emma than see something different, right? When you say it that way, replied Owen. Yeah. Exactly, and your father agrees, said his mother, looking over at her husband. Don't you, honey? Agree, said his father, even more confused. I'm sure. Good, then go Emma, and don't keep Father Murphy waiting much longer, said his mother, rolling her eyes at her husband while she straightened his skirt, then snapped her fingers at him. Give your daughter your jacket to sit on, honey, so she will not dirty her dress, and please make sure you sit like a lady, Emma. Okay, gulped Owen, taking it. But what do I say? What if he asks me stuff? Then you answer him truthfully, said his mother, stoking some curls. Now go, and everyone looks prettier in their communion outfits, so I doubt anything you're worried about will come up. It's just a quick chat, and no matter what, it's still you under there. Owen nodded, walking over with his hands folded under his father's jacket towards Father Murphy, who waited patiently down the path on a bench. Afternoon, Miss Everett, please just sit and let's talk, said Father, patting the bench next to him. I'll keep my mask on, and we should be at least 6 feet apart. Yes, Father, said Owen nervously, laying down his father's sport coat and then gingerly sitting down atop it on the park bench. And you don't have to be nervous, dear, said Father, reaching over and squeezing his forearm momentarily. This is not your official reconciliation, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to understand things about a sacrament or confession. So I assume you've given all this some thought? Well, yes, and thank you, Father, said Owen, looking down nervously and folding his hands after he let go. I know I have a lot to learn and figure out. I've had a lot of things confuse me lately. Well, that's normal, and part of growing up, my child, said Father Murphy. I was hoping it was, Owen said, glancing down the path seeing his parents looking his way from afar. Clarity comes with careful thought and in time, said Father Murphy. One is never too young to do some soul-searching and get in touch with themselves. I've been learning that, and this pandemic has given me a lot of time to think, replied Owen, taking a breath. Open my eyes to a lot of things. That's always good, said Father Murphy. I hope you're learning that we must find the good in things, especially during more difficult or more trying times like we are in now. Thank you, Father, smiled Owen. I have, but I still know I have a lot more thinking to do. Very impressive, Emma, Father Murphy told him. I've spoken to a number of young people today, but I must say you seem the most well thought out. I've always wondered how you young ladies can be so much more mature than the fellas. Oh, smirked Owen. Thank you, and I'm not so sure I'm the right person to help you with that. Humility is also a wonderful quality, so I'm glad you have it, but I'd like you to keep in mind as you think about a lot of things during this pandemic that once you are able to resume all your activities, a time will come soon when you'll need to come to grips with even more, lectured Father Murphy. Completely clear your conscience? Will you be ready to admit your sins, and vow to correct them? Yes, I've thought about that a lot too, and I'm ready, nodded Owen, looking down and crossing his ankles. I fight with my sister, I've said a few bad words and have lied to my parents, but I don't want to anymore. I really don't, because especially after today I know how much they truly love me. That's wonderful, and perfect preparation for when you actually have your communion, said Father Murphy. Those are all things I'm glad you've gotten off your chest, and are easily fixed. Thank you, Father, because I especially don't want to lie anymore, admitted Owen, looking down and fiddling with his fingers. I'm happy to hear that, said Father Murphy. But you don't have to wait to change, and if you don't, then once you actually do have your first confession, these are things you can already have corrected. I understand, and I'm trying, replied Owen, taking a deep breath. But can I ask you something else I've thought a lot about? Sure, please do, said Father Murphy. Well, I think I can correct a lot right away, but is it also a sin to want to feel pretty? Said Owen, looking away and twirling one of his curls. You know, to really enjoy being a girl, having these curls and having others think I'm beautiful? Not at all, so I'm glad you were able to wear this beautiful dress and enjoy your day, even if it wasn't exactly how we all expected this day to go, replied Father Murphy. Thank you, Father, and no, it really wasn't ever how I dreamed it. Owen extended his hand, watching the sun glisten off his shiny French nails. I feel much better now, though. Good, and what a wonderful dad you have, letting you sit on his sport coat so you can keep your dress clean, since I'm sure you can't wait to wear it again, said Father Murphy. You're lucky to have such a great family supporting you. Again, smiled Owen, biting his lip and kicking out his legs, staring at his dress. Yeah, well, I do have a great family, and I think I'd really like that. I really love this dress. I'm sure, Ms. Everett, and I've really enjoyed our talk, smiled Father Murphy, standing up. Hopefully next time I see you, though, will be in September when I visit the schools, and you'll be in your plaid uniform back in class preparing for your actual ceremony, which should be in the fall. You mean in the plaid skirts the girls wear in my school? Asked Owen. Like the plaid uniform romper? Why, of course, nodded Father Murphy. I know it's no big white dress, but I'm sure you must miss your friends and teachers, and I'm sure you'll be just as pretty in that. Oh, I'm not so sure about that, but thank you, Father, smirked Owen. Wonderful, and then I'll look forward to seeing such a special young lady I met today in class in September, said Father Murphy, giving a little nod. Good day, Emma Rose. Good day to you as well, Father, said Owen, getting up and doing a little curtsy. And after our talk? Me too, Father.